My fellow South Africans, on the 13th of September this year, I signed into law the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act, now known as the BELA Act. This act is vital to the transformation of the education system in our country. The act is an important part of ongoing efforts to build an education system that is more effective and more equitable in line with the precepts of our Constitution. The BELA Act continues the work that has been done over the last 30 years to ensure that all children have an equal access to quality education from their early years and throughout their schooling. As a democratic country committed to building a new society, we have stated unequivocally that all children must get an education that prepares them to succeed in life, no matter what the circumstances of their birth might be, no matter where they live, no matter what language they speak. In implementing this BELA Act, we are ultimately guided by the Constitution of South Africa. The Bill of Rights guarantees the right of every person to equality. It also guarantees the right of every person to receive a basic education. Importantly, the Constitution says that every person has the right to receive education in the official language or languages of their choice where reasonably practicable. This is a right that applies equally to an English speaker as it does to a Zulu speaker. It also applies equally to someone who speaks Afrikaans as it does to someone who speaks Xitsonga, Sesotho, Sepedi, isiXhosa, Setswana, Luvenda, isiNdebele, or isiSwati. And now, it also applies equally to someone who uses the South African Sign Language. The Basic Education Laws Amendment Act enacts measures that strengthen the ability of our schools to give effect to these constitutional rights. In the application of this law, we must ensure that no language is diminished. Rather, we must work to ensure that all official languages are valued and promoted. At the time that I assented to the BELA bill, I noted that a number of parties to the Government of National Unity and other key role players in our country had expressed their wish to further engage each other on sections of the bill that deal with issues of admission and language. I said that whilst I had assented to the bill, in the spirit of cooperation and meaningful engagement, I would delay the implementation date of the BELA Act in totality by 3 months. This would give the parties time to deliberate on these issues and make proposals on how the divergent views they hold might be accommodated. I also said, should the parties not agree on any approach at the end of the 3-month period, I would then direct the minister and the department to proceed with the implementation of the Act. Over the last 3 months, discussions have been held with a view of reaching consensus on these outstanding clauses of the BELA Act. Various formations outside of government have also made representations, both for and against the relevant sections. Last week, I received a report from the Government of National Unity Clearinghouse Mechanism. This is the structure which brings together the parties to the Government of National Unity and other parties represented in Parliament to deal with contentious issues and thereafter report to the leaders of the political parties that are represented in the Government of National Unity and also some in the Parliament. In their final report, the parties agreed that the Basic Education Law Amendments Act, BELA Act, should not be sent back to Parliament to make changes to the sections that were in contention. The Government of National Unity Clearinghouse participants agreed that the Act should be fully implemented. This view was endorsed by the leaders of the parties to the GNU in a meeting I held with them today. I accordingly advised them that I would proceed to sign a presidential proclamation to bring the Basic Education Law Amendment Act, the BELA Act, into operation from today. I have instructed the Minister of Basic Education to see to the full implementation of the BELA Act. I have also instructed the Minister to do what is necessary, as customary with any law, to ensure that the time frame of implementation, particularly with regard to the preparedness of the system for universal grade R access and the consequential regulations setting out the norms and standards, are prepared. All bodies and officials responsible for the implementation of this Act are required at all times to act in accordance with the Constitution of our country, the law, and the relevant policies and regulations. We must therefore do everything in our means to ensure that every child, without exception, has equal access to a decent, quality education. We must therefore leave no child behind. Let us ensure that our children get the best education so that they can take our beautiful country and our diverse nation forward to a prosperous future. Morena, boloka setjhaba sa heso. Nkosi sikelela i-Afrika. God seën South Africa. God bless South Africa. Hosi katekisa Afrika dzonga. Mudzimu vapatuchedze Afrika Chipembe. I thank you all.
That statement needs to be read carefully because there are two parts to it. One is that the BELA Act will be implemented in its entirety. The other part is that Siviwe Gwachube, the Minister of Basic Education, first has to draw up norms, standards, and regulations to govern the implementation of the contentious sections. That is Section 4, D, E, and F, and Section 5A and C. So the President has signed the entire Act into law, and we're aware of that, and that was an agreement that came out of the clearinghouse mechanism and out of the task team that reports to the clearinghouse mechanism. But the important point is that Minister Siviwe Gwachube gets to ensure that the norms, standards, and regulations are there before those sections are implemented.
And I was in conversation with Sato a little earlier on, and I brought this point to them. And Nomusa was saying that for her, it's not a big deal because everything should be there in any case, and it doesn't mean that there'll be some delays. Is that your understanding as well?
There will be some delays, obviously, because of the fact that it takes time to formulate norms and standards and regulations. It takes a lot of time. There's a legal process that you have to go through. It involves public participation. It involves a whole range of issues. So Siviwe Gwachube will go through the legal process properly, step by step, and will get those norms, standards, and regulations in place so that the contentious aspects of the bill can be implemented within that framework.
So did the clearinghouse agree on how much time this could take?
No, they didn't. Not at all. It normally takes about 18 months to finalize these norms and standards and regulations following the process as it's intended to be followed in law.
So you had expressed some concerns, of course, about this particular bill, even, campaigning during the elections, but also afterwards and in recent times as well, also speaking about the issue of Afrikaans, for example, and looking at the president's statement, he says that every person has the right to receive education in their official language and their language of the choice where reasonably practicable. And he then lists, of course, the number of languages there. Have those concerns for you been addressed?
Well, PANSALB has existed for close on 30 years, and the question to ask is, what have they done in terms of their mandate to make mother tongue education accessible to more and more children? The Afrikaans community has done a lot to ensure mother tongue education for their children. The deaf community has done an enormous amount to ensure that sign language instruction can be given and that they can learn all their subjects through the medium of sign language so that it becomes a language of instruction. The question is, what has happened with the other languages? They've been totally neglected by PANSALB, and that is where the focus now needs to be.
So what does that mean then? Does it mean it's not over for the Democratic Alliance on this particular issue?
Well, nothing's ever over. I mean, we will continue to fight for democracy and for the Constitution forever. And the bottom line is that we agreed in the clearinghouse mechanism, in the task team that reported to the clearinghouse mechanism, we agreed that eventually the full BELA Act will be implemented. Mm-hmm. When the norms, standards and regulations governing sections 4, D, E and F and 5A and C are in place. So that is the agreement.
So Helen, can I then maybe say, just tell me if I'm interpreting your position correctly here. You are saying we're backing you on condition that this process that needs to be done is done correctly. Is that my understanding?
Correct.
So what happens then? Let's say 18 months comes and the process is not complete and things aren't done. Has the clearing committee, the clearinghouse rather, did they discuss what does this mean then for this access that the president is talking about in his statement?
No, we did not discuss that in the clearinghouse because it's not up to the clearinghouse. It's up to Minister Gwahube to determine how long that takes to do it properly and according to the law.
But ultimately, it may not be up to the clearinghouse, but up to her. But these are political parties who hold different views on this particular matter. So if it does happen that she reaches that point and you're not happy, you are not going to be silent. So it means that we may find ourselves here again.
Well, we may certainly find ourselves here again on any specific day, but the president has seen fit to trust Siviwe Gwahube to put together those regulations, those norms and standards, and to make sure that she finishes them in a reasonable time frame. And we have a lot of confidence in Siviwe Gwahube to do that. Mm-hmm.